Hey everybody, it's 11 o'clock or almost 11 o'clock. That means we're here with our semi-regular conversations with interesting people. Today, wow, how do we get this guy? Dan Demsky is sitting in, and so two things I'm going to say before I let Dan start talking is just announcing that Dan was going to be on the show, and we've had some reasonably famous-ish, interesting people. This got the most likes and comments pre just announcement based. So that's one thing, and so people must love you, Dan, or you've got an army of people offshore who are just clicking on things wherever your name pops up. I'm not sure, but the other thing is I'm really interested in getting to know you because there's this I'm going to tell you how my brain works a little bit. I don't always factor in growth in people that I'm not like very, very close with. And what I mean by is like you were on my radar about probably 5 or 6 years ago a lot, and I didn't really know you. So my perception of you is locked in that time capsule. And doing a little research for today, you are 20 times different person than you were that my perception was. So it's kind of like when I meet people who I went to high school with, and 20 years have passed, and I'm just like, shit, you're a doctor. To me, you're still that asshole or whatever. Not that you're that asshole, and I'm not surprised you're successful. I'm just saying,
still that asshole.
I want to change my perception and learn what present day Dan is like. So Dan, introduce yourself. Tell people who you are.
Well, this thing just popped up on the screen. It says Dan Demsky is the co-founder of Unbound Merino, a clothing brand that believes less is better. Well, that's what I do now. I have a e-commerce based clothing brand. I started with my two best buds, and we started it when I was running another business, which went well, but I really was hating what I was doing in life. I just didn't like showing up every day, even when things were good. It didn't make me happy, and we were really trying to come up with something new. And it took us years to sort of visualize this brand or find that the idea that we thought that could work. And we started with a crowdfunding campaign, and we hit 1,000% of our funding goal. More than 1,000. We wanted to raise $30,000 in pre-sales, but we ended up with 400,000. So all of a sudden, we were left with this business, and it was exactly the business that I've wanted to create my whole life. It's so authentically me and so authentically my business partners, and we have a blast doing it. And now we're selling in over 100 countries, and it's just been a really, really fun ride. So that's what I do right now. But what you know me as is that asshole, and I'm still that guy.
All right, well, so let's talk about that. I knew you when you were running a video production company, and you guys, like, as an outwardly, it seemed like you were very successful, and you guys did really interesting work, and you built something very interesting. But why would you ever leave a successful business to go start something else up?
It was a good question. I mean, when we started that company, we were in our early 20s, and we were in my mom's basement, and we didn't have this vision of starting this big company, and we worked with like a lot of really large brands. That wasn't the vision. We were just having fun, and it sort of just started to have a life of its own, and it's just started growing. And when it really started to grow, and it grew fast, we thought we were great. When I look back now, I realized we were just dumb kids. Now, we were doing something pretty cool, and the business was pretty cool, but we didn't know what we were doing. So we just scaled this business. And, after years went by, I found myself in a place where it's like we grew this team, we had this big office, and we started closing deals just to keep the lights on. It's like it had a big overhead, and it wasn't the fun thing that it was when we first started, where we could say no to projects, and we said yes to projects just because they were cool or it was an exercise in our creativity. It started to really just started to drain me over years. And I remember the first time we ever got a check in that company for over $10,000, And me and my business partner, we had to sort of play it cool. Like we're used to getting like checks like this, but we weren't. And I remember we went to the car and we high-fived. It was the biggest deal. And then fast forward like years later, I remember bringing back a check for like $150,000. And I gave it to my business partner. Said, it was nice. It's, you know, it's a good amount of cash flow. But he's like, yeah, just go get into the bank. Like, it was no excitement because the whole thing was just like, it was just bigger than we've really cared for it to be. And there was a lot of just like pressure with that. So we found like, it's like we're closing deals and the deals got bigger and bigger. And like, looking back, I'm still very proud of what we did, but it wasn't fun anymore. So I tried to think like, but what do I do? All I've ever done was run this company, you know, since I never had I never took a check from like a corporation where I worked as an employee. I just started as an entrepreneur by happen chance. So at the end of this run, I was thinking like, look, I'm either going to start something new or I'm going to go work for a company, and I don't know who will hire me. I don't even know how to write a resume. I thought I was going to go work at Shopify because I felt like that's the only company. I think they might get who I am. I'll work at Shopify. They'll hire me. So when we launched
if you had
Merino, this was a Hail Mary. Like, is this going to work or I'm done? And it worked.
If you'd gone and worked at Shopify at that time, you wouldn't be working right now. You'd be living on a boat or something in the middle of the ocean. But,
yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I love Shopify so much. It's the only. It's working there is so compelling because it looks so great that I would even though things are going great for me right now, I still think, man, what would it be like to work at Shopify? It'd be awesome.
Yeah. I've worked in giant organizations and small organizations, and no matter what it looks like on the outside, I could tell you there isn't a single company that's figured it all out. So it may look great, but I'm sure, you know, Toby and Harley, they still lose sleep over things every now and then, even though they seem to have figured it all out. But I'm a fan of Shopify too. So you talk about it just not being fun. How important is passion in building a business, at least for you?
I mean, you know, you spend basically a third of your life working, you know, if you're working sort of regular-ish hours, you know, and another third of your life is sleeping, right? So if you have like a good bed and you like your work, you have 2/3 of your life figured out. I feel, and especially if you're running your own business, if you start your own company and it's something that you don't love and you don't love showing up every day for, you have to really rejig something, because you have the power to sort of, I mean, you created it in the first place. So set it up in a way where you're passionate about what you're doing. And if you're not passionate about it, then you really should consider doing something different. So I think it's like the most important thing. And I think you always have to believe that you could do it. But if you're not having fun, you're not loving your work, I think you're making one of the great mistakes. I think loving your work is one of the greatest pleasures in life, because your whole life is great. If you're putting your energy into something you love, and that is generating your income for you to live, everything's great. You can work longer hours. That's fine if you need to. I'm not a workaholic, but if I had to work 16 hours in a day, it's not like the worst thing in the world. I'm happy to do it.
So
it's like hanging out.
Yeah. So love your work and all that stuff. But, you know, you took a really interesting path, because, you know, you essentially went from a service-based business to an e-commerce business. And a lot of people, you know, when they get out of one thing, they go to something that's very similar. It's kind of like you do what you know, sort of thing. You took a real left turn. Why did how'd you even think you could handle an e-commerce business?
I think maybe I was just naive. Maybe that worked in my, okay, look, this is where that it just clicked with me. I remember I have a few friends that started e-commerce businesses, and they became very, very successful. And I saw that there's a different like level of scalability to an e-commerce business than there is to a service business, for obvious reasons. It's like, you put the thing out and money can be generated while you sleep. When service businesses, I had to be in the boardroom pitching 5 to 10 times a week. If I wasn't, there'd be cash flow issues 9 months down the road, So, but the people I knew that started e-commerce businesses, some of them, these are my friends. I'm like, not the smartest guy in the world, but he's doing it and he's killing it. And like, if he can do it, I can do it. So that was it. So, but then I had to think, well, what is it? So I would come up with ideas. I would sit with my business partners today. We'd have a whiteboard or a chalkboard, and we'd come up with ideas of things that we could sell online. And we did that probably for 2 years. We were still running our other business, but just anything. I mean, we had an idea to do limited run art prints. And I thought it was a really cool idea, but like, I don't know if people are going to care for 1 of 10 of this guy's art. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see if it was on. Put it on the shelf. We had an idea to make our own pickles because I'm a Jew and I feel like I know pickles. But I'm like, I'm not going to make pickles better than Strubs. And also, what are we going to do? Ship like a heavy so we just come up with all these ideas, and I think because we were constantly thinking about what this idea could be. When Unbound Merino, sort of like doing a merino wool apparel business, sort of just came into my brain. It was like all of the things that didn't make sense about everything else didn't fit this. I'm like, this could work. The timing on this could work. I feel like this could work. So I just like, let's just give this a go. What do we have to lose? I felt like this was the idea.
What do you think was the worst idea you put up on the whiteboard? Like child trafficking? Anything like that?
No. I you know what? I can't remember. We probably came up with over 100, and I can only remember art prints and pickles. I don't remember what else there was, but pickles is a pretty bad idea.
So let's actually, I want to talk about Unbound and where the idea came from and stuff like that. But first, I think there's still something really interesting about. So I've done 50 of these interviews, and so Jeff Kohlenberg wants to know if you've ever read the book.
Yeah, that's a fish. It's a fish reference. He's talking about the band Fish, and then someone else asked about Fish. Yeah, I love the band Fish. That's actually really why I do everything, so I can see more Fish shows.
Yeah. I've done 50 of these interviews, and I think out of there's entertainment people, business people, all sorts of things, but out of all the business side of interviews, I'd say 98% of the people are co-founders as opposed to just founders. Why is it so important to have somebody with you along this journey, and how do you even find a co-founder that isn't going to be someone that you hate in 3-4 years, because you're basically married to this person?
Well, a lot of people I know don't have co-founders. They don't even like the idea of it because they want to run the show on their own. For me, I've always had co-founders, and the co-founders have always been my best friends. So that's another thing, is people think that business and friendship doesn't mix. That I'll take the opposition on that one. I think business and friendship really mix. I've only ran businesses with my best friends, and them being my best friends, we have an incredible level of trust, an incredible level of candor, and we just want the best for each other. Like, we could argue like passionately about stuff and call each other idiots, but we know it's just because we're really trying to squeeze the best out of each other. My other business, BizMedia, I started with one of my best friends, and this business is with my other 2 best friends. So we're like 4. So he's not in this new business, but he's still my best friend. We decided not to be partners anymore, but it didn't change how much we love and care for each other. The real reason why I think working with a co-founder is great is because you can have someone else who cares as much as you do, and they can have a different skill set. But the thing for me that's most important is it's just more fun. Like, I don't like going out drinking with people. Let's go get drunk, because it's like it just seems like such a waste of time. But I love going out for beers with my best friends who are my co-founders, because we just talk about from a different angle, you know, we're getting a little loose, having a few whiskeys about the company, and we come up with ideas, and it's like there's a level of it being productive. So it helps sort of blend that line between, you know, that work-life balance. You know, it's not like I have work, I show up, this is where I make money, and then my life is after 5 o'clock where I can see my friends. It's like I'm working with my best friends all day, and then we can go out for dinner and drinks after. Well, you know, pre-COVID, in those glory days, we could do that. And we don't have to talk about work, but sometimes we can, and it's all fun. So I feel like I'm just kind of hanging out with my best friends all day and night, having fun, and that's awesome. Why would I not want that? And I know they're not my employees; they're my co-founders. We did this together, and they care as much as I do. I get messages at 12:30 at night. They're still thinking about the business, and it's all fun. It's the best. It's the best way to live.
So we're like 16 minutes in. I still haven't asked you what Unbound Merino is, and we're gonna get to it. I promise. I just have like 2 more things, and then we're gonna keep rolling.
I don't even care to talk about the company. We can just talk about.
I'm curious, so I want to hear about it. So one of the things that I always thought was so funny about you, as someone who, like, I'm not part of the inner circle, was you do some really funny stuff on Instagram. And this may be a year or 2 ago. I'm really bad with timelines, but you went on a streak where you basically were the funniest influencer on Instagram, but you weren't actually an influencer. You were basically just like, you'd be drinking a glass of water and you'd put like, hashtag ad or like all sorts of things. Like where'd that come from? Was it just boredom, or was there something driving it?
It's definitely boredom. It's definitely bored. I just said, just Instagram just exposes everyone's like true nature, and there's just so many people are so cheesy, and I just look at it and I just like, oh, it's all so cheesy. So I think I was just poking fun at people, and it's probably boredom. But now it's like, as I have this e-commerce brand, I have this thing where I'm like, I've been like a real asshole online, and I think, like, how much of this do I need to tone down? Do I need, like, because I can like rub people the wrong way. I try not to get too much into like politics and stuff. Like, try to, and it's sort of like an identity crisis, because who I am, I'm more of an internet troll than I am an entrepreneur. But I feel like if I want to make this entrepreneurship thing go, I have to tone down the internet troll nature. So I don't know. I battle with that. I post less now because people say, hey, you can't say stuff like this anymore. I'm like, I can't. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
How much do you worry about that? Because I find I'm censoring myself far more than I ever used to. And like, I never write kind of like, I don't know if you saw the actor from the Flash TV show just lost his job because they look back and he had like 25 rape jokes on his Twitter and talking about, putting women in cardboard boxes, like real awful stuff. I never go down that route, but the stuff that I find funny is usually a little subversive. And I sometimes wonder, like, and I'll be honest with you, I lost a pretty big project, because I had the cover image of my Facebook wall was it was the famous Burt Reynolds naked lying on the bearskin rug, Photoshop with my face on it, and a brand thought that was just way too edgy, and I lost a project, and so like whatever, like I've had brands tell me I had to change my Instagram bio because it used to say certified bra fitting expert, which is true. I took the course. Like, I was proud of myself. So like I kind of, I've toned it down a little bit, not in my brain, but publicly or whatever. But I kind of think about that all the time, because unlike you, I am in a service-based business where I rely on people every day to feed me and things like that. So it is a bit of a different mindset, but like, there's so many jokes that pop in my head that sometimes I'm just happy that I came up with them, and it's an audience of one and I don't share. But there are other times where, like, I've actually deleted something about 6 minutes after I posted it, just because like I felt weird about it, and like, well, maybe 10 people saw it and somebody laughed, but it's just like
I've
one
done
of those
that
things.
so many times. I've done it so many times, but I have I think the barometer for me is if this ever became, if anything I posted ever blew up and like it became like an internet mob against me, could I just dismiss and say like, no, this is not offensive? Like if like I think there's some things I just like I wouldn't care to say because it could hurt people, or it's like it's not the time to say something like that, you know. But I don't ever cross that line. I think I'm just making fun of like cheesy people who are Instagram influencers, stuff like that. And if people really thought it was offensive and I could be like, you need to just cool it. Like, this is not offensive. Like, it's a joke. Relax. If I felt like I could confront it without having to say, I shouldn't have said that, I'm sorry, then like, maybe that's a barometer. I don't know. It's fun to push buttons though.
Neil, the comedian Neil Brennan,
he's the best.
Brennan. He obviously says a lot of things that ruffle some feathers. He got in a little trouble with somebody took offense to something that he said, and he had what I thought was the greatest comeback ever. He goes, "Get back to me in a month and see if you still care, and then we'll talk about it."
Yeah,
I thought that was really great. So what is Unbound Merino? And because like we've mentioned it a bunch of times, tell people, you know, what is it? Why is it different? Why should people care?
So we make clothing. It's just for men for now. It's merino wool clothing. And I discovered merino wool when I was traveling overseas and I was trying to figure out a way that I could pack lighter. I mean, I was trying to figure out how can I go overseas for a long period of time, but just have a carry-on, because I was going crazy with luggage. Luggage gets lost, it gets stolen, you have to schlep it around. I started doing some Reddit research and I discovered merino wool. Someone said, when I travel overseas, I pack merino wool t-shirts because it's odor resistant and antibacterial. So I can wear it multiple days, even in a row, and it will never smell. So that way, instead of packing 14 t-shirts for a 2-week trip, maybe I can pack 3. And it doesn't matter if I wear it 3 times. I'm like, this is perfect. Now, where I live in downtown Toronto, there's all of the stores in which you can buy merino wool are within a short walk. Patagonia, Mech was there. There used to be a store called Unbound. And I'd go to these stores and I'd look for, it was like 2 days before I was going to Thailand and somewhere else. And I was shopping for merino wool t-shirts and I had the hardest time finding something that I actually wanted. The first merino wool t-shirt I ever put my hands on was at Mech. It was $110 and it had a picture of a timber wolf on it and it said "Live Free." Now this looks like the kind of shirt that you would find in a lost and found at a community center that's been there since like the late 80s that no one's ever wanted to claim. And then who would pay $110 for this? So I kept looking, and I ended up finding some base layers, which are like what you'd wear under your clothing with skiing and stuff. They were kind of plain-ish, but it had a reflective logo and it had a certain fit. Everything I find was something that would be for the purpose of going outdoors, portaging, or some kind of active wear, or like something you should be in a lost and found. And I thought, if this material it's like a miracle fabric, why are people not making like a simple and stylish basic t-shirt? Because that's something I'd want to wear if I go out on a trip, if I was in a cocktail bar or out for a walk, but like it, you know, it has some versatility. I ended up buying merino wool clothing and I went on a trip and I would look back at the pictures and I was at a cocktail bar and I felt like I just don't like, I felt uncomfortable. I felt like I was dressed inappropriately to be out at a bar like this. And I just didn't understand, why is it so hard to find the thing I'm looking for? And that's when the idea clicked. It was that timing thing. My buddies just created e-commerce businesses before. I've noticed this pattern that they got frustrated with what was available on the market. So they went and created the thing that they wanted to exist. So that's all this was. I'm like, I want to buy merino wool t-shirts that are like a nice black v-neck, something I could wear out for a walk with a pair of shorts, but also if I put on a nicer pair of pants and a watch, I think I'd feel okay, being at a nicer bar. And I just couldn't find it easily, and everything was positioned for that portaging trip or for getting onto a bicycle as part of a triathlon or something. So I thought, hey, maybe we should do this. And my thinking was, either we have really nailed the timing on a good idea, or we didn't. And if we didn't, at least I'll have gone and made a bunch of prototypes, and I'll have made the thing that I wanted anyway. And I'll have like 100 shirts that I want. So I thought it was like win-win. I got to do this. And I was losing sleep over this idea, but I have to do it. But at the time, I was also starting a new sock brand, and I had my video production business. And I went to this business coach who was a good friend of mine, and I just laid this whole idea out to him. I was so excited about it. And he said, Dan, this is an amazing idea. He said, but you're not the guy to do it. And I was like, what? Like what? And he said, you're trying to get a sock brand off the ground. You're running your video production business. You're already spread too thin. You're not doing either of them well. How are we going to add a third to this? And I said, you know what? You're right. I remember I was at the dog park and I was just so deflated, but I didn't sleep that night. I was up thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't care. I have to do it. And that's when we decided we're going to do a crowdfunding campaign, because I felt like that was a way of doing it with the least amount of risk. You know, I didn't have the dough to throw at like starting this idea, nor did I at the time, but I felt like I could slowly build out a campaign, launch a crowdfunding campaign, and that would be a way of assessing, do we have product market fit? And if we do, I'll figure out my life from there. And then it went really well. We raised $400,000 in pre-sales, and I thought, this is it. I just walked away from my other two companies, and I didn't take a salary for a year and a half. I evaporated any savings I had, and I just went all in on this thing because I'm like, I believe that we hit something, and that was all the proof I needed. I loved what I was doing. We knew how to position it. We knew how to market it because we fit the core demographics so well. So it was just, I was back to the wall. This was my last chance to feel like I could start something that was really what I wanted to do, and it worked. And now we sell in over 100 countries, and it's going awesome.
So you're obviously a crowdfunding success story, but like the reason a lot of crowdfunding isn't a success or it's a failure is people think that you just sort of shoot a good video and cross your fingers and it works. But like the science behind crowdfunding, I don't know exactly what you did, but the science behind it is you kind of start a month or 2 months before you even you go live with your crowdfunding. You start telling people, would you give me $1? Would you give me $5? Would you this is coming? And it's crowdfunding is it's really hard. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much effort actually goes into it. So were you just lucky, or did you do all the stuff that you need to do to make a great crowdfunding project? I talked to everyone I know that did crowdfunding that did well. I just pried out any information I could from them. I read everything that there was available online. I left no stone unturned. I really, really wanted this to work. I believed it could work, but I felt like it's not going to work just because I want it to work. I had to do everything I could, and we worked really hard to make sure we did it right. And if I could talk about the one thing that we did that made the biggest impact, is exactly what you just said. It's prepping people. We didn't build up a customer list in advance, like an email list of people who sign up and get deals, people we didn't know. What we did is we tried to build some artificial momentum from the get-go from people we did know. So I haven't asked a lot of people for a lot of things in my life. But what I did in the months leading up to this, I said, in about a couple months from now, anyone I was comfortable enough to ask them to spend about $50 plus, like just as a favor, like, can you do this for me? Like, and I went through my entire Facebook list and I made a spreadsheet of everyone I'm willing to ask. And I asked them one by one. Now, I've been on the receiving end, and I'm sure you have, and I'm sure anyone that would be listening to this has been on the receiving end of a friend saying, hey, can you do me a favor and can you go vote for me on this thing? Or can you check out my campaign here? And most of the time you're getting a mass message, and you're getting a mass message. So you don't even have to reply. You can say, yeah, sure, I voted for you, or yeah, I'll back you, or you could say what you want. But if you didn't, they wouldn't even know that you didn't reply. It doesn't matter. I wanted to make sure that I was connecting with people and let them knowing that I was really asking them it was not just blasting people, like spamming them. I was really needing support. So
2 months before, I said, in about a couple months, I'm going to be launching this thing. And I said, I tried to infuse a little joke, an inside joke, so they knew I was talking to them. If you can't support us, please, it doesn't matter. I appreciate it anyway. But if you were willing to spend $50 on a t-shirt, it's a lot to ask for a t-shirt. That's the cheapest we're ever going to sell it for. But I promise you, this is the greatest t-shirt you're ever going to buy. But most importantly, this is just a favor. You'd be helping me in starting something I'm really, really passionate about. Would you be willing to? And if they said yes, I put them on the spreadsheet. And when the time came that we actually launched the campaign, I took that spreadsheet and I had to double down and ask again because the thing was about to go live. But this time, instead of sending them a message, I put my webcam on and I recorded a video. So if I asked Saul Colt, I would turn the camera on and say, Saul, remember that time I was on your Facebook Live? It's like, that was fun. I would say something personal, and then I would make a joke, and I would say, listen, you said that you would support. If you can't anymore, please don't feel pressure. But if you can, this thing is live now, and it's a labor of love. And I did these for 3 days, morning to night. It was just asking people one by one with a little video, and we started drinking. It was boring, so we're drinking whiskey, so they got chaotic by the end. Some of them were crazy, these videos, because me and my business partner were hammered by the end. And I would save the video as saulcolt.mov. I'd upload it as a private listing to YouTube, and then I would send the link. And now in your Facebook inbox, you get this little like thumbnail, and you'd see my face with a play button, and it'd say saulcolt.mov or MPEG or whatever. And you're going to hit play on that because it's different than a copy paste message. So you hit play and you're saying, Saul, you hear me? I'm talking to you, right? It was so. Some people said, dude, you know what? Right now, it's just I can't be spending money on anything like this. I'm really sorry. Totally fine. But most people were like, I got you. I got your back. So and we had this friends and family round. So for the first day, we just needed to get 30% of our funding goal, which was $30,000, so that we could get featured in the Indiegogo newsletter. That was a deal we cut with them. And I made sure that we had $10,000, over 30% of that, already lined up with people I know. So when we started that campaign, you would see Brian Demsky, that's my brother, is one of the first people to order, right? He ordered because he's my brother. He didn't care. He didn't care about the shirts at the time. He loves them now, but he didn't care. He was doing it just for me. And then you see, I remember these names. It was Sandy came next. That's my business partner's cousin, right? And we start seeing these familiar names. Then we hit 10,000, and now we're trending on Indiegogo. The first name I remember was Johannes from Berlin. No idea who that guy is. That was the first time someone that was not one of my friends or family bought off us, but he found us because we created this fake momentum, and we hit our funding goal in the first day, and all of a sudden we looked like this hot campaign. So now on Indiegogo, people think this is a hot product, people want this, so it created a life of its own. And at that point, it just started selling all over the world. And we got 2,000 of our first customers that way, and that was sort of the springboard for us to continue to grow as we built our Shopify store. But that was the single most important thing we did, is we left nothing to chance for getting that initial momentum. And momentum matters because momentum is seductive to people. People don't want to back something that's only 10% funded. They want to back something that's 200% funded because they feel like people like it. It's validating. So we got there with our own momentum first and created that illusion that it was a hot product, and then it became a hot product.
So I know a little bit about crowdfunding. I'm not going to say I'm an expert or anything, but like I know a lot about a lot of things. I'm a smart guy.
You're the smartest guy in the world, right?
Yes. One thing I do know that with crowdfunding, though, is a lot of companies realize, like, as soon as they've bled through their friends and family and, the 20-30% of people that are just out there in the world who trip all over the thing and love your product, crowdfunding really isn't a business plan. It's like a launching plan. So you've raised all this money, you've fulfilled your orders, but maybe you've got 20% profit in the bank or something. You kind of have to restart your business after that. So how did you actually go from crowdfund to Shopify store?
Well, The good thing about crowdfunding is it forces you. You say it's not a business plan, but it kind of, if you're going to be an e-commerce business, it kind of is. It's just a platform you're using to get you off the ground. But it forces you to figure out everything you need to figure out to actually become a real business. So we had to figure out what our brand was, because we had to put it on the campaign, and we had to source our manufacturers. It's the whole process of starting the idea to executing the campaign was about 1.5 years. We had to figure out how to make clothing. We had no idea what we were doing when it came to making clothing. Find the suppliers to do it, and how do you sift through hundreds of suppliers, and many are garbage, and find one that you can trust and you can have a good relationship with. All of the brand assets that we needed, photography of the product, videos, the copy, like the sales copy. This is all stuff you need just to create the campaign. So once our campaign was successful and we were building our Shopify store, what we did is we looked for a template we really liked for a Shopify template, and we picked one based on stuff like the assets we already had that would fit nicely into this template. But our initial Shopify website was our crowdfunding campaign reskinned. We had all the photography, we had our brand name, we had the product, we had good sales copy. So we ported it all into Shopify. And I remember it was in December of 2016. We still were working in our other companies. I was just becoming full-time for the first, like, into Unbound, but my business partner still had jobs. And we would meet before they'd start work at Starbucks or at Portland Variety, the restaurant on King Street here. And we would spend 1.5 hours or 2 hours just sort of getting things underway. And we had our Shopify store up. We didn't launch yet. We didn't announce it. And I remember going into the back end to change some copy, put in a couple photographs. And we had like over a dozen orders, and we never announced the store. I don't know how they found our store. Like, we didn't expect this, and we were so excited. We ran to our little storage locker, which was our warehouse, and we were got to ship these orders. And we were so excited because this thing now had a life of its own, because we had 2,000 customers that we were already shipping products to, and they loved it. So there was now this word of mouth being generated. So if you run a campaign on as a crowdfunding campaign, you're successful, you already have everything you need to start. From there, we started figuring out, well, what's next? We're not doing crowdfunding. We have to find a new way to market. So we sort of delved into Facebook ads and paid ads and stuff like that. But everything that we needed to make this successful, we built in crowdfunding. So I'm a big fan of crowdfunding, just in the sense that it prepares you for everything.
But you have all the assets, you have all the things. The one thing you don't have when you leave crowdfunding is the customers. So obviously you have your 2,000 customers, you've got that mailing list and thing, but these people have literally just received your product. So they're probably not going to buy it for maybe 4 or 5 months or something like that. So
no, but that's not true, because they were. Because if you buy one T-shirt and you say, this is the best T-shirt I've ever owned, and you go on the website, like, I'm going to buy 3 more of these right now. And these people did, right? So there's that, but then there's word of mouth. So we had 2,000 customers. It's not a huge amount, but it's also not a small amount of customers.
No, it's a great starting point.
It's a great start.
It's nothing to be like that. 2,000 is a great number.
It was a great start. But from that, we had people coming back, but we had people who were first-time customers finding us. There was word of mouth. Some people on crowdfunding won't buy on crowdfunding. They want to wait to see if this company is legit, and they're actually going to start shipping. And once you start shipping and they start seeing the comments that it's shipping and I love this shirt, they start buying. But the real power that came from that, if you have a successful crowdfunding campaign and you have even if you had just a couple hundred customers, the Facebook ads, you can create these lookalike audiences. So that was the first thing we did. We took these 2,000 customers and we uploaded them to Facebook, to the ads platform, and Facebook finds these people. This is like the whole creepy, Cambridge Analytica data mining stuff. Like, as much as I'm like, that's disgusting, a part of me is also like, oh, thank God they do that, because it gave me my shot to start. Hey, I can compete with anyone, because Facebook lets, like, that's the other side of it that people don't often talk about, is that I know it's a little creepy how much they know what you're doing, but that allows people like me to really have a good marketing engine behind to find the right people that are willing to buy the products that we're selling. So we put these 2,000 customers in, and Facebook, the way the lookalike audiences work is they find the top 1% of other people that are most similar to our customers in terms of all of their online behavior. This is not things they like on Facebook and things that they've clicked like on. This is where they go when they're not on Facebook. This is what websites they browse, the types of purchase behaviors they have when they're not even on the internet. And as creepy as that is, it's found people who are very likely to want to buy our stuff. And it's not like we're manipulating these people. They love our product. And some of these customers have come back 5, 6, 7, more than 10 times and bought our shirts because they found a brand that works perfectly for them. And without crowdfunding, we never had the ability to tap into Facebook like that. And that was the thing that really launched us to sort of that next level.
So John Simo has asked, what growing pains did you experience for scaling up? And I have a bunch of other questions too, but what growing pains did you experience?
Well, the biggest growing pain we had was because we were sourcing overseas, we had to figure out how much inventory do we need to have in 4 months. And when we get that inventory, and we're growing pretty fast, is that enough that's going to last us 4 months? Is that so much time it's going to take us to get another production done and then shipped overseas to us? So because we were growing pretty fast, we didn't have enough cash to fund the inventory we needed. We kept selling it, and it was a good problem to have, but we were sold out of everything. So we had some months where it's like we were stocked out of everything that was our core product. So we had to figure out, how do we get cash to fund our growth? And we didn't want to sell any equity in the business. We didn't want to have outside money or outside investors of people that would become partners breathing down our neck. And because we were so young as a business and we didn't have 2 years of financials, we didn't even have a year of financials, we couldn't get a bank loan. So we could go try to seek out some kind of like high interest, like private loan, or figure something else out. So that was a hard thing to get through, to figure out where we get this cash. But what we did is we did a crowdfunding campaign again, which is, I think if I could talk about one of the smart business moves we made, that would be starting the business on a crowdfunding campaign is one of them. And then doing the crowdfunding campaign again was probably one of the smart moves we made, because we were developing this hoodie. We said, instead of just funding it with our own cash, which we're running out of because we have to fund our inventory, and selling it, why don't we pre-sale it on a crowdfunding campaign? Then we'll get the cash before we have to even produce the things, and we'll have access to finding all these new customers again. So we did a great campaign again. It was way easier the second time, but we did $400,000 again, about the same amount. And that move allowed us to circumvent having to go get outside capital, having to sell anything in our company, and it gave us the cash to sort of fund our growth. But that was a really hard time, because many months we were completely out of stock, and people were like, "Why do you even advertise? You never have any stock." And people would bitch at us, and like we were growing, and then all of a sudden we had barely any revenue in a month because we were out of stock. We're just waiting for the shipment to come in. So it was a challenging time, but it was challenging because things were going really good. But that was the big growing pain I could think of.
So you've made some really interesting choices with your product, and I'm always fascinated if these were happy accidents or you actually put time, energy, and research into this. So the couple things that stand out for me is that there's really no seasonality to your product, because like you're there just isn't. You sell t-shirts, hoodies, and you basically sell them in 2 to 3 shades of black. So were these by choice? Is this like, we don't want to get caught in dumping a bunch of inventory at the end of every season? Or is this just, we're still learning this business, so we're going to stick to what we know, do a couple things really well, and if we ever want to add a red or a blue later, we can do that if we want to, but why bother with pinks and pastels and spring and browns and oranges in fall?
It was totally thought of and considered. We worked hard to sort of figure out what our core values as a company are, and the one core value that's been there since the beginning and that we live by is you even wrote it here. You said less is better, less but better. Coming from a service business where I had to be, pitching all the time, working all the time. We had all this overhead, making young foolish decisions to go and get a big fancy office, right in the early days as we're starting to grow. Everything about this business we considered making it simpler. Let's just do this in the most simple and intelligent way that is economical. Like, so we started our first, I remember, my office for BizMedia was at Spadina and Adelaide on the top floor, beautiful space. We loved the space. But I ended up hating it at the end because I'm like, it's just like, it's like a golden handcuffs in a way. Like, it's like, if we keep doing well, we can stay here. And I love the room, but it's like, it just drains you to have to maintain this. So our first office was a little tiny storage locker for Unbound Merino. And I love that place. I'm so proud because we're doing things right. But I looked at everything that existed in the industry with clothing and being completely, I hate fashion. I hate the fashion industry. I think it's weird. And everything about it, I just don't understand. But I look at how these companies would run. They have these spring, summer collections, and they have fall, winter. And if you go higher fashion, they have like 6 collections in a year. But once that collection is done and you're on to the next one, they're always I always notice they're always clearing everything out. They're sitting on this inventory that people don't want anymore. I'm like, well, everything we make, it has to go through. There's like a framework. And that, first of all, if you were wearing our t-shirt in a picture taken 15 years ago, it would look good. It would look normal. If you took a picture today and you're wearing it, it would look good. It would look normal. And in 15 years from now, it's going to be the same. We don't follow any trend. We only make things that are a timeless style look. So it will always look good. That way, if people aren't buying it, it's okay because it's not going to be like useless inventory. We don't want to have seasonality for that same reason. So we'll even sell the hoodies all year round. People will always need a hoodie. It's not like necessarily winter wear. Even in the summer, there's cool nights. People will still want a hoodie. We thought about wholesale. Well, why would we want to do wholesale? That's a smaller margin sale for managing a more complicated relationship. Forget it. Let's just do only direct to consumer. We don't even consider it. We went to one of the biggest sport clothing trade shows in January in Munich this year, and I was seeing all these brands. They're massive brands with these big like footprints. They had their fall winter line that they were launching. It was a big deal, and there's all of these sales reps there, and then they had a whole other in a pavilion just for their booth that would have desk after desk after desk of salespeople closing deals, wholesale deals. And I was looking at this, I'm like, these companies here are making millions and millions of dollars today. And it's crazy. But I'm like, how much did it cost them to staff this thing, to set up this whole thing? I'm like, it's a whole different level. And I looked at it, I'm like, I just don't want to be in that game. Like I've spent my days being tired work. I don't want to be tired, like doing things bigger and crazier. I'd rather do things simple and better and live a great life and be able to invest more money in the product itself rather than in the marketing and hoopla and all of the staff. Everything just makes more sense. Funny thing is I think about it now. I remember it walking around, that part of me was a little jealous, like, wow, look, we'll never be like this. But then COVID happened. I think, like, I wonder what's happening. All those deals they closed, I was in awe of, they're for sure canceled now. Right? These businesses are not built to weather a storm like this, and they're probably in deep jeopardy. For us, it's like the only problem we had is that we've really positioned ourselves as a travel product, and travel's been sort of, COVID is not helping that positioning. But all we had to do was really work to sort of rejig our positioning a little bit and make it a little less about travel and more about what our brand promises are, which is simplicity, versatility, and performance. And that's what we've been doing. So that's the only storm we had to weather. We've bounced right back. And that's, you know what, we just want to build a business that focuses on the product and the customer, and that's it. Not on all the other hoopla and the growth. And I don't care what my office looks like anymore and things like that. So I try to be more simple.
Yeah. So COVID, it is interesting. It's affected so many things. Like you said, you guys were able to sort of, I hate the word pivots. Let's just say reposition or whatever you want to use. But it really has taken the wind out of brick and mortar retail. It may never survive. So are you? Did you have plans of ever being in stores? Were you planning on just hunkering down and staying D2C? I noticed you weren't on Amazon, which I think is a great move. People fight me on this all the time, but we could talk about that after. But did you have aspirations of opening a store or being in stores, or like the future of retail, affects you, doesn't affect you?
No, we had no plans. I think we my business partners and I, we've talked a little bit about maybe one day we'll have our own flagship store, but we don't talk about it. We sort of like once every 6 months sort of mention how it would be cool. Oh, I saw the store. If we ever had a store, it would look kind of like this. But it's not on our radar because it's so far off that we just don't care to focus on it. We just want to do things simply. I have no interest in doing anything that would complicate how this thing is running. It's like less but better. We're just trying to focus. All we focus on is product and customer, and that's it.
Yeah, so I am curious with the Amazon thing, but one thing I wanted to ask you earlier and I didn't think of. So I recently, let's say December, January, I had something made for a client in China, and I found a factory and did the whole thing. I didn't travel there. It's the first time I'd ever manufactured something direct like that, and it was the scariest thing I had ever done because I'm literally wiring like a $5,000 US payment to somebody I've barely had a conversation with or anything like that. Worked out okay and thankfully. But how did you maneuver? Like I was making $5,000 worth of something. You're making $400,000 worth of something. The scale of nervousness would be very different. So how did you find a factory? How did you work that? Like, what was that experience like?
I was paranoid because I know I have friends who have done manufacturing overseas, and I've had friends that have been screwed over. One friend of mine, his story is so tragic because he had a growing company, and his factory decided to skim on something to save money for themselves, and it was such a catastrophe that it put his like exploding company completely out of business in one transaction. When we were sourcing suppliers, one of the first things I asked is, are you okay with us coming to do our own inspections and to visit the factories? Because when we do the order, we will be coming. I didn't say we might, we will be there. And they had to be okay with us. And they're all fine with it. But that was something I was really serious about. And in our budget, when we had with our crowdfunding, what we were hoping to achieve in crowdfunding, we budgeted in a trip to China, because if I want to meet them face to face, and I also want to feel good about where we're manufacturing. You hear all these things about manufacturing in China, and it's like, children work in factories and things like that. And I'm like, I have to be able to see where we make our clothing and be able to go to sleep at night. So it was like, there was an ethical part of it, but there's also like a paranoid part of it. Like, I don't want to get screwed over. And when our production started, we budgeted in going to China, and we hung out. We stayed there for almost 2 weeks, and we tested our clothing there in China. And for the first year and a half plus, before we really got a handle on how to do better third-party inspection with other companies, we were there. And they knew we were coming every single time. And that was sort of our insurance that they would not screw us over, because even though our relationship got really good, they knew we were coming. So if they're making, so I'd say, when's the production gonna be ready? We're booking flights, and we always showed up. It's also part fun. I like going to I like going anywhere in the world and eating food. So we'd go to China, we'd eat lots of food, we'd explore. It was partially for fun and it was exciting, but really it was just training our suppliers to know that we're there. You can't screw us over because like you can't make it a little smaller to save on material or whatever. Like we will be there. We're going to be putting the clothes on, and that was like what we did. That was, I mean, it's not a very economical way of dealing with the paranoia, having flying to China every single time you do a production run, but that's what we did.
So you don't sell on Amazon, which, like I said, I think is a great move. It's Amazon for me, and I've advised many people not to do it. And some people tell me I'm wrong, and some people take my advice. But it's like it's short-term revenue with no long-term gains because like you don't own your customers. So you talked about having 2,000 customers as your base from the crowdfunding, and that was your springboard to growing your business. So you could do 2,000 orders on Amazon and never know who they're going to, have no email information, never be able to get a second sale. And Amazon, I'm not a big fan. I probably buy less than 10 things a year from them, and it's truly just by necessity and convenience. I try to, spread my money elsewhere and things like that. But they're notorious for sort of you like this, why don't you buy that? And sometimes the thing that they're pushing people away from your product to is like a white label company that they own in the background, and they do it with like healthcare products and all these things. Like Amazon owns 1,700 white label off-brand companies that they'll push three orders through you, and then all of a sudden there's this there's a new merino wool t-shirt company because their data has shown that people care about this. So I assume all this, but did any of that go into your decision?
You said everything. Yeah, everything you said I'm so passionate about. They are evil. And there's one other reason why we're also not on Amazon, but you nailed it. It's not just white label. Amazon Basics. Sometimes they just rub right in your face. It's like, why buy this? Get Amazon Basics because they'll make the same thing.
And they charge you a lot for warehousing and things, so you could end up actually like not making any money on your sales.
If you're like, we spend our energy and time and money like acquiring new customers. If we're going to acquire a new customer, we should be able to, if they decide to stay opt into our email list, to continue to communicate with that customer. That's our customer. If Amazon's not giving that to you, it's short term and it's short term gain. And the worst thing you could do on Amazon is do really well, because once you do really well, that's just triggers their algorithms to say this is a hot product. That's when Amazon Basics kicks in. That's when and I've seen it happen to my friends. I've seen multi-million-dollar Amazon businesses go like to shit in like almost overnight because Amazon clues in and squeezes you out. Jeff Bezos even said like, your profit is my opportunity. Like he said something like cryptic like that. But the other reason we're not on Amazon is because Amazon really is just like a huge Walmart. Right. And because we're selling a premium product and it's a higher price point, it's just not like the environment where people want to buy that kind of stuff. They go on our website, so it's less junky selection. It's like it's a small curated, like less but better like options. And I think that people, you talk about buying things less than 10 times a year or whatever on Amazon for convenience. If you were going to buy something that was like, if you wanted to spend on like a nice watch, I doubt you're going to Amazon. Like if you were going to spend $1,000 plus on a watch, let's say, it's just not an Amazon thing. You'd rather go and find the watch company you like if that's your thing, So we are selling a more premium product. It just doesn't fit on Amazon. That's the other piece. But the real reason is exactly everything you mentioned. It's like, why would you give them your customer? Like that's all you're doing. It's just like, I'd rather work harder and build our own customer list, and that's how you build a more sustainable business.
So 2 more questions, and I'm going to give you your day back. And I forgot the question. What does kind of like the next couple of years look for you guys? Are you just gonna like, I don't want this to come off as disrespectful. Are you gonna keep doing what you're doing, or do you see like, adding 7 more SKUs or anything like that, or like
Oh yeah.
obviously you want to grow and be a trillionaire and all that stuff, but is the growth through the existing product line now, or is it tapping into 20 more things? All of a sudden you've got blazers and you've got scarves and things like that.
Well, I had this conversation yesterday with my business partners. No, lots more product. That's like huge for us. There's a lot of stuff we want to roll out that people ask for, that we want. Like, we want to make pants. We have shorts that are about to come out. That's it. That we don't want to have a million options. We want to keep it simple, and we want to have some more colors, but we're really trying to envision, in 3 years from now, where we want to be as a business in terms of like, we don't just talk about revenue and things like that. We talk about, look, what does our store look like? What products are there when we have a more complete collection? If we had, venture funding, we could probably add stuff a lot faster, but we do it bit by bit because we're funding our growth on our own sales. So it's a process, but that's it. Just rolling out more products. That's what we're doing. That's the main focus. And products, customer service, and acquiring customers. That's the whole name of the game, and that can last us for years. So that's what we'll be doing. But yeah, if you look at us in 3 years from now, we'll have a lot more stuff in the store for sure.
I I don't know so we had lunch like a year or two ago, 3 years ago, who knows how long ago, and I threw a couple ideas at you. I don't remember if I threw this idea at you at the time, but when I think of you guys, and again, I'm not saying you should use this. I just think it's a funny sort of Polaroid picture. But when I think of you guys, I think of Charlie Brown's closet, where he opens the closet and he's got 18 of those yellow shirt with the black stripe. You guys should really start like a movement around, like where Obama used to have two style of suits. He had Charlie Brown's closet because he never wanted to actually have to burn any bandwidth on figuring out what to wear that day. And even Mark Zuckerberg, to an extent, I don't think he does it as much anymore, but he always talked about wearing the same thing. And of course, what's his name, Steve Jobs, the ridiculous turtleneck and dad jeans and stuff. You guys have to start a movement where it's literally take the thought process of of clothing out of the equation, and everyone should be like Charlie Brown.
We don't have to push it. Our customers do that already. There's there's many of our customers, and they even write into us and say like this helps reduce decision fatigue. So a lot of our customers, like, for whatever reason, we sell a ton into the Silicon Valley area, and a lot of these tech entrepreneurs or like coders or people that work at Google and Facebook, and they look at people like Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, and they say what they're doing with their clothing makes sense to me, because I want to have good clothing, but I don't care about what's the trend. I don't need it. I just want to have like something that works really well for me. So a lot of our best customers, like there's one guy, he's a tech guy. He has 3 houses, and he orders a medium black V-neck. He orders 8 t-shirts to each of his houses, and he does that once every year. He recycles it, gets like new shirts. That's all he wears. Sometimes when he's going out, I can see in his pictures, like he wears a blazer over it because it looks good, or he'll wear a button-down shirt, like if it's a different occasion. But almost every day, he is just wearing a black Unbound Merino V-neck t-shirt. And some people just they don't want to think, they don't care about style and do it and expressing themselves that way, but that is an expression of what they value, and it's in their work and putting their mind into something else. So the way Obama has 2 suit styles and he always wore that same thing, the way Zuckerberg has his hoodie, to be honest, I would do that. The only reason I wear different styles of different colors and stuff is because I'm testing our own stuff and other companies' stuff, and I want to wear it and see what it's like. But if I were just a customer of Unbound, I would wear a black crew neck t-shirt, I'd have 10 of them, and that's the only thing I'd wear. I'd have no problem with that. And so many people do that without us having to push it as a movement. It already is. It's a movement that exists, and people take our stuff and use it to fit that movement. And it's quite common.
So one last thing, you see me here, obviously I'm one of the more stylish people you come across in any given day, and I
feel like I see double. I see glasses like twice.
Yeah. I'm almost always shamelessly wearing something with my name on it, and that is by choice. That is, it's a little bit of gross. It's a little bit of like I'm in on the joke, and it's a little bit of like feeding my ego. That I'm a complicated person. There's a lot of layers to me, but one thing I find really interesting about what you guys do, it's almost an unbranded product. And I don't expect you to have, Unbound Merino across, nipple to nipple or anything, but there isn't really like an identifying mark that, if you'd be able to, give somebody the head nod if you're both at a party, like even if it's just like a little red tab or, a white, little something. You guys are really living the promise of like, bare necessities. Why is that?
Because that's what that's what I wanted. And when I spoke about it with my business partners, we realized it's sort of just, people are not buying our shirt because they want to look cool. So like say, I got that. But they're buying it because they like having nice things that have like a really high level of performance, but they don't need to buy it for the sense of validation from others. It's not where they know it performs for them and they're willing to invest in quality, but it's not about having the coolest, latest thing and showing people. It's like, they don't need that. It's the way I feel. I don't want to be show. I like having a good quality shirt. I like having a good quality tea kettle, but I'm not doing it so that it's to impress people. It's more for me. So I think there's a beauty in that subtlety, and it will never be an outwardly branded company. We've thought about it a lot before. We thought it's like, especially with like, what if we want to reach out to Instagram influencers? Like, how are we going to show it's a black t-shirt. It looks like any other black t-shirt in a photograph. We don't have anything that signifies like I think Lululemon has those little cross stitches here, and like people love having something that makes it stand out visually. It's like, we just say, we'll just opt out of doing that. And a lot of people appreciate that because they're not buying it for that reason. They don't want their clothing to be the thing they're defined for.
What if you did one run where you had a timber wolf and it said "Live Free" on it?
I should make that just for myself.
Okay, you have been very generous with your time and with your brain and with your answers. I need to tell you, you started off saying that you're an asshole. I don't know if it was my influence that made you a nice person, or maybe you're not really an asshole, because this has been a delight. You're real interesting and delightful guy. So
I look forward to this for a long time. So thanks for having me on, and it's great to be here.
Yeah, I want you to use this moment to get people to buy things. Tell people where to send you money, how to contact you. Go to the website.
Don't buy things unless you need them. But if you need the best shirt, then buy them. They're great. The link's right there on the screen. But yeah, I'm never trying to be on these things to pitch our stuff and get more people to buy things. But if they like what we have. I mean, anyone that wears our shirts is the best shirt they ever wear. Unless you can't wear it because you're Saul Colt and you have your own brand. This is the best shirt out there. So there's the link if you cared to. But if you're my friend, I'll just give you one. I
thought you were going to say, unless you're Saul Colt and we don't make husky sizes. I thought a little bit of that meanness was going to come through, but I'm glad you did it. Yeah. Thank you, Dan. This has been really great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Thanks so much, man.